today we are paying our respects to Pope. We're looking at the prices of gold, and since it's Earth Day, we've got some cool innovation coming your way on how to keep our planet a tad level cooler.
My name's Toya Singh. Let's take a quick look first at all of the headlines. All right, first up, as we promised, in this market, where do you invest as gold rates hit an all-time high? It's reached 1 lakh rupees per 10 grams, and it's all anyone can talk about. So what should Indian investors do? And where does its younger brother silver get left out in this discussion?
Like we said, we are celebrating Earth's Day today. Our power, our planet. That's the theme this year. There has been a global call to action to triple the renewable energy generation by 2030. How realistic are these goals, and what is going to be India's role in this journey? We decode that on TBC this morning.
And we take a look at India's quietest climate solution in the form of a cook stove that is changing people's lives. Remember, women in particular, but other family members too, so affected by the smoke generated indoors from traditional chulas. This invention changes all of that up, and we speak to the inventor.
And there's more. India's greenest packaging story. The man who put purpose into packaging and now runs a factory on rice husk. This Indian startup is taking this packaging material from India to the world, and we're going to talk all about it on the program today. If you woke up this morning looking at the prices of gold and got a mini heart attack, you're not the only one. Everybody is feeling the heat and the shine of gold. Gold prices have now hit a record high. So what should Indian investors really be doing? First up, let's look at the gold story so far. Gold prices in India have surged to record levels and driven by global economic uncertainty, of course, and a weaker dollar. The price of gold has touched 1 lakh rupees just for 10 grams. It's all happening this morning, and this surge is largely due to fears surrounding the US-China trade tensions and a falling dollar, which makes gold more affordable, for some at least, and for the non-US investor at least. While gold is often seen as a safe haven asset during times of crisis, experts now warn of high volatility. Investors are advised to be cautious, especially in the short term, and some analysts are also predicting a correction in the prices of gold as it fails to break through the resistance levels. What are these levels really?
Right. So what can you do in this moment? That's what we want to help you with today. If you're an investor, a wait and watch approach is what's being recommended. The broader outlook for gold remains bullish due to ongoing geopolitical tensions, as we just said, but volatility means you should very carefully consider your timing when it comes to purchases. Gold might shine bright in troubled times, but strategic planning is key to making the most of this very, very glorious asset. So first, we thought it's very important. Let's take a look at how gold has fared over the last few years. So we thought let's take you back first to April 2023. Gold prices in India significantly lower. For instance, back on April 3rd, the price of 24 karat gold was 59,000 rupees per 10 grams. Now fast forward 1 year, April 2024, last year, prices saw a notable increase. There was the highest recorded amount point, that was 73,000. So already from the 50s to 73,000 per 10 grams on April 12th. And let's come to today. Gold prices have surged to unprecedented levels. Current rates have reached 96,000, almost a lakh per 10 grams.
So global factors that are influencing gold prices, what are they? US-China tension, the trade wars that is happening, the ongoing trade war between US and China has led to increased market uncertainty, driving investors towards gold as a safe haven asset. Also, the weakening US dollar, a decline in the value of the US dollar makes gold more attractive to investors holding other currencies and further boosting its demand as well.
Right. Central bank purchases also increased gold purchases by central banks around the world, particularly in China. China, they've contributed to rising prices. And what does all of this mean for you as an investor? Well, in terms of strategy, given the current high prices, as we told you already, you need to be cautious. That's what experts are advising. It may be smart in this moment to wait for a potential price correction before making any kind of significant investment.
Or should you now start looking at other metals? What about silver? What are the prices over there? We'll talk about that, all of those, with our expert in a moment from now. But for the moment, Manisha Gupta, our colleague from CNBC, takes a look down the gold memory lane to see how it's faring. Remember, when she recorded this piece, gold had still not touched 1 lakh. So that's her piece from then.
Well, it has been a phenomenal bull run that we have seen in gold prices, and it has made an all-time highs, not just in the US dollar or the Indian rupee, but Chinese yuan and Japanese yen, Australian dollar, euro, etc. So gold really is the safe haven to go to right now with the kind of geopolitical concerns that you're looking at. The trade tariffs, of course, have led to a lot of hedge buying coming in for gold. And then the street also is looking at the dollar index, which is now trading at a 3-year lows, a perfect recipe for continuing to be long in sense of gold. If you look at the US markets, we've seen $3,400 an ounce being touched here. For the Indian markets, the high that I'm taking at right now is at around 96,850 rupees per 10 grams. You have to minimal add 10% as making charges onto this price, and that brings the prices to almost a lakh rupees and 6,500. 3% GST is what is charged on gold and jewelry. So with that 3%, it comes to a lakh 9,700. So if you are stepping to buy gold, a lakh rupees at 10 grams is now a given. If you're buying something which is more intricate or a jewelry, then you perhaps will end up paying much more than that as well. As I said, it has been a very strong year, 29% of gains in this year. 45% up in last 12 months is what gold has given you as a return. No other asset class or commodity has been so bullish that way that we have seen gold prices in this year itself. Apart from all the things that we discussed, another thing that has been supportive is the US president now talking about investigating imports of critical minerals. Also the way he spoke about US Fed Chairman Jerry Powell about on how he should be fired. So independence of US Fed also is a bit of a question mark right now. The streets do not like that, and we've seen safe haven buying coming for gold because of that as well. And then the strong ETF buying, the global central bank buying of gold, all of that has been very, very supportive. And even as we're trading at around $3,400 an ounce, the banks and brokerages believe that 3,500, 3,700, and if the tariffs continue where they are, and if the situation gets weak and the economic demand is not so strong and there are recession fears coming in for US, then $4,000 per ounce is also not too far away. So that's the way that the markets are looking at gold prices right now. When it comes to silver, well, yes, silver has very strong fundamentals, and there is a deficit of silver for a 5th straight year in 2025, and the industrial demand for silver is hitting record highs. But the whole focus right now clearly seems to be on gold. As and when that profit taking comes, and that will come because we've seen prices gain up by $800 an ounce in this year alone. As and when that profit taking comes, you will see money going into silver. Already a lot of people are buying silver jewelry rather than gold jewelry. So we are hearing those reports there. The other metal to keep an eye on is platinum. At one point in time, platinum used to be at a premium to gold, but right now as gold is trading at $3,400 an ounce, platinum is trading at $1,000 an ounce. So a lot of jewelry offtake in platinum also is something that is being reported. So well, absolutely, as and when that profit taking comes in gold, which the markets do believe would be the tune of 8 to 15%, you will see that money coming in for other metals as well.
All right, so that's the broader picture, but we wanted to take you to something really interesting. In one of Shanghai's busiest malls, there's actually a small claw machine-sized ATM that stands out among the shoppers, and it isn't an ordinary ATM. It's the first gold ATM, and it's drawing crowds as gold prices, as you just saw, have surged to record heights as reported by Sixstone. This is a state-owned English language online magazine. Just look at these visuals, they're coming in. This modern convenience comes at a time when we're looking at gold prices just climb rapidly.
Yeah, the process is so streamlined, right? It's what measures the weight of the gold with the purity of 99.99% based on the Shanghai Gold Exchange live rate. And then the machine calculates sort of the payout as well, minus a small service fee. So you forget going to a jeweler, forget going to a mall in modern day India. You could now just have, buy and sell gold on a vending machine. That's just super cool. All right. So that's just everything that's happening, innovation and price updates that are happening on gold prices. But we've got a guest joining us now. Nasir is here with us. Nasir Salim, Managing Director for Flexi Capital. Good morning, Nasir.
Good morning.
This is the day when all the mothers in the family say, "Dekho, मैंने बोला था सबसे अच्छा investment is gold का investment." So this is the time when a lot of Indian mothers can take pride in doing it right. But the big question at the moment is the prices where they are. Should you buy? Should you sell? What should you be doing at the moment?
Good morning, Sonal. Thank you to all of you to have me over on your show. So, very interesting question. Yes, I can tell you, even the family that I come from, I've been being told repeatedly that you didn't make us buy at levels where they were cheaper. Gold obviously is now become the safe haven. Will continue to do so. There are 3-4 reasons, Sonal, and to both of you. One, I think one of the most important points is that central banks have been buying at unprecedented scale, right? Because of they've added about 1,045 trillion tons of reserves in 2024 alone. Third straight year, above 1,000 tons. And I think broadly led by emerging market institutions such as Poland and China, we've seen a lot of buying by all central banks. I think the official demand alone absorbed is more than a quarter of the global mine output. I think that's the most important point to note. Tightening the physical balance and the most important point is the underpricing of prices, even when ETF investors were still net sellers in the last 1 year. So those are the main reasons. The other very quick one is that, as far as we see, falling real yields, and softer dollar will ensure that gold continues to go up. The current situation that we are in at the moment, Sonal, and I can tell you this, we are looking at a US kind of a recession. It's only a matter of time. It will continue to be treated as a safe haven. And therefore, the very fact that all central banks have continued to buy gold will ensure the price remains pretty much buoyant for some time. Do we see certain more upside from here? Maybe 2 or 3% from substantially could go up. But does that mean it's going to continue to go up? I don't think so. We don't think so at Flexi Capital. The way that we see this is that today there is more opportunity to hedge your gold in terms of what it may have reached on the top in terms of prices. Simply on account of, as I said, 2 reasons. The third reason, which is very, very important, is that the demand for gold will now only get to a time correction and not a price correction. So what we will see is, it can possibly touch $3,200 to $3,400 possibly an ounce, which is another 3 to 4% from here. But there will be time correction. I don't see any major downside correction coming in. The other quick point is that, between all the other metals, I think silver is again something which is, coming up very, very strongly. And we feel that between gold and silver is something which may look a little more prudent. Again, disclaimers in place. I can't give recommendation or advice. But, between silver and gold, we feel that silver could be a better play at this point of time.
Interesting.
Tell us, Nasir, silver obviously is both precious, but it's also something that has big industrial usage, with a lot of countries shifting into EVs, solar panels, etc. Again, silver's importance comes into play. But for audiences who are trying to understand, that dual role basically sets up silver for more stability. Is that the right interpretation?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, silver and gold have always had a dual relationship, right? And if I look at the price correlation, it's about 0.8, which is on every 1%, there is an 80 bips rise of silver. Every 1% rise in gold is an 80 bips rise in silver. I think currently where we are, there is the main construct or the main economic indicator that will tell you why silver will continue to rise and is looking a little more better in terms of pricing is because of the main reason of demand supply inefficiency. There is a lot of demand coming up, whether it's in the form of renewable energy. So we're looking at EV, lithium, There is a lot of requirement for solar panels, as you rightly said, LEDs. And, the demand is going to continue to rise because we are moving to a world which is only and only pushing renewable energy and industrial demand, right? I think the obviously the other question is that if the world goes into kind of a recession, it'll be very difficult to decouple if the US slows down, which is imminent. It will be very difficult to kind of continue to get that kind of industrial demand. But we feel that silver, given the fact that there is a huge industrial demand and huge demand, inefficient supply chains are not good enough to get you the kind of mining that you can get in silver. I think silver is going to continue to demand a premium over the next few years, over the next few quarters, and I think one of the main reasons why silver will also continue to scale is because silver is being very highly utilized in a lot of battery manufacturing also, lithium batteries.
Yeah.
And that is again a part of renewable energy, but that's going to continue to rise. There's a lot of demand. Everyone's talking about, EVs and battery charge stations. And I think all those companies which are looking at very aggressive, opportunity in terms of capacity utilization for inputs for silver will be the big demand creators.
Okay. All right. So hedge your gold. Silver is perhaps the new gold, looking more attractive at the moment. That's what Nasir is saying. But then, Nasir, if somebody looking at this program wants to sort of invest in, what form should we really do that? I think gone are the days when one would buy physical pieces or go to a jeweler and procure, right? There are tax implications, there are safety implications, all of those things. So are ETFs the option, or are there other options at play that one can look at?
That's the most important question for us in the morning. I can tell you that, and I can answer that very comfortably. Okay, so there are two kinds of opportunities available to investors. Number one, there's something called, as you rightly said, ETFs, which are you can buy them through your demat accounts, and these are very regular exchange traded funds which are available. You don't have to buy physical gold or silver. You can actually buy in through these exchange traded funds. There are if you speak to the viewers speak to their, where they have the accounts with demats, it's very, very simple. You can buy silver Bs, which is available like gold Bs. These are linked to an exchange traded fund. Typically, it could be the London Metal Exchange LME, very popular, which is a benchmark for getting in, ETFs for silver. Number two, there are also wrappers now, which are built around Sonal, a lot of AMCs, for example. And I can name a few of them just from an illustration perspective. Kotak is there. ICICI runs a very interesting wrapper, which is a fund, and through a fund they've invested underlying is ETF holdings. And there again, they're all unitized, and all investors can just put in as low as 500 rupees to 1,000 rupees, right? And you can also do an SIP. So those are very, very interesting and very safe because you're not buying in physical gold.
Yeah.
The redemption windows are usually T+5, which is trading day plus 5 days. And you can get liquidity within, as I said, 5 days, 5 working days. The taxation is very, very simple. It gets added to your, it's non-equity taxation because you're getting into a metal. So it's non-equity taxation. But again, very, very safe, very liquid in nature. And these are very large AMCs and ETFs that one can kind of subscribe to.
Okay, very solid
and
advice
diversify
there.
one's portfolio.
Yeah.
Nasir, thank you. Very, very solid advice there, especially towards the end. We've got some actionables for our audiences. As we were coming into the show in the morning, there were a lot of questions about how do you go around investing in gold. You've answered all of them.
And a lot of people say, I don't have so much money. So this is the great option that you can spend and invest as much as 500 to 1,000 bucks in gold and silver and see that grow and sort of learn along the way and see how that goes. Thank you so much, Nasir, for joining us this morning with all the information.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Okay, let's move on now from this to some very, very saddening news that we actually got yesterday. Pope Francis, the religious head of 1.4 billion Catholics across the world, is no more. Barely a day before news of his death shocked the world, he'd actually met with, so we'll tell you a little bit more, but Pope Francis captured the essence of his life and living in a final tweet. And in that he wrote, do we want to share?
Yeah, he said, Christ is risen. These words that capture the entire meaning of our existence, for we were not made for the death, but for life. He was 88. He suffered from various age-related ailments and was hospitalized for over a month. Pope Francis also, despite his sort of frailing health, appeared in a wheelchair on Sunday. In his last message, he also emphasized upon the importance of freedom and peace at a time when the world is witnessing large-scale conflicts. And he also stressed on the importance of freedom and religion and expression, stating that they were essential for global peace.
He's someone who stepped out again and again and spoke about those who were victims, spoke about those who weren't empowered, and his death leaves the highest post for Catholics vacant, which needs to be filled through a long process at the Vatican. There are lots of shows, films like The Conclave, that was one of last year's Oscar nominees, that actually cover just how interesting, how tricky that entire process is. Take a look though.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that, Pope Francis, one of the last video chats he did was with people in Gaza, and how there was a mass being held around Easter. And that was his real message to them, always there in the time of
He
conflict.
constantly stood for the people of Gaza. Just take a look though. This is a larger report.
From the beginning, Pope Francis had the common touch.
Buonasera.
A simple good evening from the newly elected Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio from Argentina, the first pope ever from the Americas. Equally at home with the poor and the powerful. On the lawn of the White House, he made a plea for immigrants.
As the son of an immigrant family, I'm happy to be a guest in this country, which was largely built by such families.
The Pope focused much of his attention to those on the peripheries, as he called it, the outsiders excluded from society.
The hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, those in prison.
He was not so popular at times inside the Vatican. Backlash from conservatives upset about his liberal approach to church teaching, promised reforms of financial transparency never fully materializing, and the scandal of sex abuse continuing to be the Catholic Church's biggest struggle.
He met with victims. He expressed heartfelt sorrow. He expressed resolve to get this right. But, most critics, many victims, would say that that wasn't matched with a policy follow-through.
When the coronavirus pandemic hit in 2020, this image of the Pope blessing the world from an empty St. Peter's Square became a symbol for that desolate time. Francis urged nations to share their vaccines with poorer countries and vaccinated hundreds of homeless and underprivileged at the Vatican. From the beginning of the war in Ukraine in 2022, Francis was an outspoken advocate for peace. Francis avoided outright condemnation of Vladimir Putin, but publicly appealed to the Russian president, begging him to stop for the love of his people, the Pope said. He made similar appeals for peace during the conflict in the Middle East, saying that the Israel-Hamas war had descended into terrorism. He insisted that war is always a defeat and said self-defense that is not proportional is immoral. Francis's most important message was one of fraternity, that we are all brothers and sisters despite our differences. I'm Karen Kefa reporting.
All right, we are paying our respects to Pope there as well, and we'll keep bringing you the latest on what happens at the Vatican. For the moment, a quick break. When we come back, all the details on World Earth Day, some really cool startups that are making an impact here in India.
नाही सर.
Pope Francis made a surprise appearance for the Easter Sunday blessing at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican, which turned out to be his final public moment. The world was shocked by the news of his death the following day. At 88 years old, Pope Francis leaves behind a rich legacy, reaching out to the unheard and comforting those in need. His remarkable journey began with a humble request, not only for God's blessing, but also for the prayers of the people who believed in him. As he departs, he leaves behind footprints that'll last a lifetime. On the 13th of March 2013, Jorge Mario Bergoglio was christened as Pope Francis, becoming the first Jesuit Pope. As he assumed the highly revered role at the Vatican, his mission was simple. Pope Francis chose humility, simplicity, and compassion over fame and riches. He yearned to serve the people in every possible way. Pope Francis firmly believed that inequality should be banished from the face of the earth. He reminded the world that the poor matter just as much as those of high status. He walked with them, listened to their pleas, and stood firmly against what he called the economy of exclusion. On Holy Thursdays, he washed the feet of prisoners, refugees, and even Muslims, showing the world that dignity knows no boundaries. His papacy became a global call to mercy, a mission to place the forgotten at the center of the church. As Pope, Francis reached not only the poor, but also those shunned by society. The LGBTQ+ community, often marginalized by religion, was seen, acknowledged, and included in his pastoral vision. Under his leadership, the Vatican softened its guidelines on admitting gay men to train as priests. When questioned about the role of gay priests, the Pope replied, "If someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge?" These simple but profound words marked a dramatic shift in the tone for the Catholic Church. In another historic move in 2023, Pope Francis approved the blessing, though not of marriage, of same-sex couples under certain conditions, emphasizing compassion without compromising doctrine.
All right, today marks the 55th anniversary of Earth Day. This year's theme is Our Power, Our Planet. And it's a global call to action to triple the renewable energy generation by 2030, not very far from now. Now, it's a reminder that the power to protect our planet lies in our collective hands. From solar and wind to hydro and geothermal, clean energy solutions are not just future possibilities, they have present necessities. That's what it's become.
As we face escalating climate challenges, and we talk about them every day on the Breakfast Club, the transition to renewable energy is crucial for a sustainable, equitable future. Today on Earth Day, communities worldwide are coming together to advocate for policies, tech, behaviors that prioritize the health of our Mother Earth. And it's a day to reflect, to act, and to reaffirm our commitment to environmental stewardship.
So we thought, let's bring you some solutions. What is it that you and I can do on an everyday basis to ensure that we are contributing and doing our bit? So this is a message coming in from India's three-man, Swami Prem Babatan, and aka People Baba as we know him as, the environmentalist and the founder of Give Me Trees Trust. Here's what he's advocating.
Delhi not just being the capital of the country, it has also become the heat capital during summers and the pollution capital during winters. Now, what is it that as citizens we can do to mitigate this? There are many things that we can do, but the only thing that I would like to share with you is that let's keep our individual carbon footprint as low as possible. If you are using a car, let's use, sometimes let's use public transport or a two-wheeler. Whatever little we can do to conserve water, electricity, consumables, one-time use plastics, whatever we can do. Secondly, on the greening part, if you have a rooftop, balcony, stairway, you have a corridor, as many plants as possible, as much greens as possible, surround yourself with plants. Third, if you have an empty space outside your workspace or your living space or the countryside or your farmhouse, fill it with trees. You can have fruit trees, you can have grasses, you can have ornamentals, you can have bushes. I would prefer native bushes, native shrubs and native trees and native fruit trees, most important. because when you plant fruit trees and flowering trees, it helps the pollinators, it helps the other birds as well. So these are the little things that you can do. So happy Earth Day to you, and happy summers. In fact, I think summers are something we used to really enjoy when, during our school time, and we used to really look forward to summer vacations. But these days, the kind of heat, the kind of pollution that, a combination of heat and pollution and dust that comes our way during the months of April, May, June, July, that's not very, very healthy for the, especially Delhiites. But still, we can do little things to just make our life comfortable.
All right, let's take you now, because we thought Earth Day is actually the perfect time to spotlight climate innovations that are changing lives across the entire country. So first we thought, let's talk a little bit about something that's making change in rural India. For millions of women from rural households, cooking on traditional chulhas isn't just time consuming, it's also a deadly process, because the smoke from the burning wood indoors is one of the biggest killers in the developing world, and it can lead to a lot of chest issues, not just for the person cooking, but for their family members too.
Now, one of India's startup is actually flipping that story. Ankit Mathur's Greenway Man has built a fuel-efficient stove that cuts smoke by 70% and slashes the carbon emission, and has already reached over 3 million households. That's a lot of houses, right? It's clean tech designed for India's poorest, and it's working as well, because that seems to be at least what the numbers are telling the story. So we thought we'll welcome him on the program to let us know a little bit more about it. So Ankit Mathur joins us now, co-founder and CEO of Greenway. Good morning, Ankit. Thanks so much for being here. Happy Earth Day to you. Great stuff that your stove is doing, but I really want to understand the story behind it. What propelled you, and when you say that 70% carbon emissions cut, how does it compare to, say, a traditional chula?
Right. Thank you so much for having me here, and happy Earth Day to you and to all our viewers.
Thank you.
First of all, I would just like to give a couple of lines on Greenway. We are an energy access company and a climate action company that has been in the space of energy access for over a decade now. As you rightly mentioned, cooking on firewood is a process that involves a lot of drudgery, not just in cooking, but also in collecting wood. The product that we designed early in our startup journey ensured that the fuel air mixture is optimized in a manner that it cuts down on the fuel consumption, delivers more heat to the vessel that is being used, and in essence cuts down the amount of firewood as well as smoke that the primary cook is exposed to. So in simple words, less wood, more heat, less problems to the woman who's cooking, and a cleaner, happier household in total.
Okay. Ankit, just tell us a little bit about the experience of taking these stoves to the marketplace. Your co-founder Neha, we haven't actually spoken about her, but you both created this company together.
That's right.
She's talked a little bit in interviews about the difference in selling in the Northeast to other northern states, and just because different people are holding the purse strings in the family. Just break that down for us.
No, thank you so much for bringing that up. When we started out developing the stove, we thought that we would go to North India, Central India, Western India, where the need seems to be a lot more for a product like this. But as we started reaching out to households, what we realized was that gender equality plays a very important role in energy adoption at household level, and that is something that really sort of talked to us when we reached out to Northeast, when we reached out to Southern India, where gender equality is generally better. We saw that the uptake of the product was a lot better. There were financial groups, there were self-help groups that were able to finance the product better. There were networks of women that did a lot of word of mouth better for the product, and overall we were able to talk to the customers directly, to the primary cooks directly. Whereas in UP or Bihar, sorry for putting it out, it always used to be the man of the house who would eventually hold the purse strings, and it made it difficult to sell to a man a product that would make a bigger impact on the woman of the house.
Right. Ankit, I'm curious to understand, how did you guys think of making a product like this? You guys come from good universities, there's a lot of cool sort of innovation happening. How did you think of going to the back of beyond of India to solve these problems with a product that is perhaps, very, very limited to sort of rural India?
So when Neha and I started up, we had this idea of reaching out to masses with clean energy and climate action, and we traveled a lot in rural areas. And as we did that, we realized that most of the times when people were kind and would offer us tea, we would obviously oblige, and we saw that all of that was being cooked. The food, the tea was being cooked in a kitchen that was black, that had a lot of smoke, and we thought that this should be a simple problem to solve for engineers like ourselves. But it wasn't that simple, to be honest, and it took us almost a year of prototyping, of reaching out to customers, getting feedback, before we had a marketable product that we could take to them, that they would like to buy. And through that journey of reaching out to over I would say 1,000 households, over 30-40 villages, 5-6 states, we really understood what user-centric design is and how to co-create with users a product that they would eventually, sort of give their stamp of approval by buying it.
Amazing. So I just want to ask Ankit, just tell us a little bit more about, now so let's just tell our audiences, you've told us about how you started this and why you started this with your co-founder, and you've talked a little bit about the adaptability challenges right in the beginning, the toothing challenges. I just want to ask you a little bit about the present day and the future. How do you see Greenway Grameen growing? Is it just more stoves being sold across the country? Penetrability essentially increasing for you. Are you looking at other products too? How do you envision this?
So it's a great question. Thank you so much for putting it out there. Well, the fact remains that there has been a transition towards cleaner cooking. There's been a lot of policy push, especially by the central government, in terms of trying to get gas to rural areas. And while that is a great effort, there's still that still leaves a lot of pockets where we still need solutions like these to reach. So as you rightly said, we would like to increase how deep we reach in the rural villages. But at the same time, we realize that there's a clear transition from wood to electric cooking to gas-based cooking that's happening at a household level. And then there's a transition that's happening in terms of how we consume electricity. I mean, there's a huge push towards solar energy. There will be a push towards battery storage. And these are the energy access pieces that Greenway is continuing to, research on, to launch products on. And then there are household products, simple products like, water filters that still need a lot of pushing in the market. While we have a lot of access to that in urban areas, there's a lot of work to be done in rural areas. So that's what we've set ourselves out to for the next 5 to 7 years, and hopefully with all the policy push and the support, we will get there.
Right. Ankit, as a closing comment, I want to understand, the government is also pushing for a lot of gas stoves being, there is a full, sort of campaign for it. But if I were to look at an environment calculator of sorts of how green these options are, how would say the gas stove that you make versus the gas cylinder versus a solar panel, in terms of affordability and its impact on environment and scale, etc., which one do you think is the most possible solution, the most workable solution for India?
Well, I think the cleanest would be a solar panel with a battery that works, an induction stove or an infrared, because that's completely clean, no point of use emissions, but that's very expensive, right?
Yes.
I mean, we don't even have that in Europe and the US in terms of people adopting solar and putting battery packs for cooking. Then comes the trade-off between fossil fuels that have no point of use emissions versus cleaner cooking options like stoves that have point of use emissions, but that may be overall cleaner in terms of the overall impact when you calculate what is the amount of emissions that have happened over getting the fossil fuel, transporting it, and then using it at the point of use, right? Versus, let's say, biomass pellets or wood that is collected from renewable plantations or buffer stocks which are constantly renewing themselves. So I would say that in terms of point of views, gas definitely is a better option. But in terms of the overall emissions, improved cook stoves could be pretty much there, depending on how well you make them and how will you market them.
Yeah, and perhaps also in India when it comes to how well you can make people adopt them. And I think that's going to be another key area as well. Thank you so much, Ankit, for joining us, and good luck with everything that you're doing with...
To you and Neha.
Yeah, to you and Neha. Everything that your organization is doing for the planet.
Thank you so much.
That's not the only story we've got for you on today. We also make you meet today the man who didn't just inherit a business, but reimagined for the planet. Ved Krishna is our next guest on the program, who took his father's struggling paper company and turned it into a global leader in compostable packaging.
Right, so right from using sugarcane waste to power his factory with rice husk to building biodegradable tableware for giants like Haldiram's, Cafe Coffee Day, McDonald's. This is a story of purpose, not just profit. Let's go over to Ved Krishna ji. He's the Group CEO of Pakka Limited, and he's with us this morning. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, morning. Thank you for having me.
Can we first ask you, Ved, if we can call you that, can we first just ask you a little bit about your story? Because this is a company that your father ran, first very successfully, and you had this moment, because you were abroad, you had this moment, you'd come back, you were managing the company, where you went, I want to change the focus of what we do. And you shifted the company from what it was doing, which was already packaging products, into making it this, eco-conscious packaging products. So tell us a little bit about what shaped you as a human being to make you want to do that.
Well, sadly you don't have an hour, but I'll make it short. So,
we don't.
But the fundamental idea was to try and find our purpose. So I did inherit a company from my father, and I only came in to help him. There was no other kind of agenda there. I didn't want to be part of this business. I was, again, like you said, I wasn't living in India. Came back and basically tried to run a pulp and paper company, tried to expand it, had big, hairy, audacious goals to make it a significant sized company, but I really pushed it into financial turmoil. And when you have that situation in life, when you don't know whether the business is going to run tomorrow or not, you tend to do a lot more self-reflection. And my wife would ask me, what would you do if there were no barriers in your life? And each time it was loud and clear that I would do something in service of the planet. And I realized, it's the alchemist idea that the pot of gold is right there and you don't see it. So I realized that we were in packaging, as you said, but we were having zero impact. And that's what put us in the trajectory of trying to find different solutions, mainly tackling, as you said in your introduction, two broad areas, which was how do you find a replacement for polystyrene or styrofoam or thermocol, as we call it in India. And that is basically because, again, it cannot be repurposed, downcycled, it'll become microparticles, break into small pieces, and it is a carcinogen.
Yeah.
And we did that relatively successfully in 2017-18 by introducing our brand called Chuck. And as you said, there are wonderful customers who work with it now. And then the idea was the multi-layered packaging, which is actually, we don't realize that, when we go for poly bags, we actually ban the poly that we are carrying stuff in. But if you peep inside it, you'll see chocolates and crackers and chips, and these are in multi-layered packaging.
Yes.
These won't go away. And, you can imagine when you eat a piece of potato chip, it tastes as fresh as it would have when it was manufactured 6 months back. And that's because of the packaging. So the challenge is that the packaging doesn't allow moisture or air to go in. But what also happens is that it doesn't break down. So it means it's not going to go away for 100,000 years at least. And the first one was made maybe 50 years back. So the first one has 99,950 years to go, and we just open it and eat it and throw it, right?
Yeah.
So it's that simple. So we started working on that and commercialized our first chocolate packaging last year. And that's our big, hairy, audacious goal now, that by 2030, we should be producing about 500,000 tons of that material.
Okay.
Wow, Ved, you really hit the nail on its head when you talk about it's not just the fancy bags that you carry and think that you're doing something for the planet. It's everything that you consume that comes with it. So tell us a little bit about this product. How are you ensuring that the product remains all right? You're also, if I'm not wrong, made from agri-waste and fully compostable and plastic-free. So how's that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So Paca has 4 broad promises, and when we do our innovations, we kind of literally do not move beyond that idea, which is basically all our products have to be home compostable, not industrially compostable, because there are no industrial compostable sites in India at least, and very few around the world. So the idea is that if it does get thrown, it must decompose, and it must decompose in relatively short periods. The second promise is that it must be downcyclable. We call it recyclable, but actually there is no such thing as recyclable. But it must be downcyclable in a paper stream. So paper gets collected about 70 to 80%. Polymers, petroleum polymers, the plastics get collected about 7 to 8%. So there's a huge difference between that, and that's fundamentally because of economic value.
Yes.
The third and the fourth promises are marine and terrestrial safe. So if an animal was to eat our product, it should not harm them, and and the same thing for marine life. So yes, all our products right now are made from sugarcane residue. We love the stuff. It would have been burnt otherwise. All our energy is made from rice husk. We recover 95% of our chemicals. All our wastewater gets first converted into methane, used for powering our products projects, and then is treated and then taken out. So various things that our amazing teams do.
You're also off the energy grid, I believe, right? Entirely. We'll talk about that in a second. Wait, we'll just get to that. But before that, I just want to ask, I know that you also sell your products to the US. And you're actually, you're working with huge companies there. McDonald's, for example. I just want to ask you, what has the American story versus the Indian story been like? How more accepting or less accepting are companies there versus here? What are the advantages to the way Indian companies work with you? Break it down for us.
Sure, absolutely. And so the Indian companies have been very surprising. And you talked about Haldiram, and I remember literally them taking the initiative that, we want to shift. And that's been huge. There is this desire in people to shift. The global companies are driven more by their promises. Now they face their own challenges, right? So if you look at a Unilever, we work with closely, they have a small shampoo sachet that is 2 rupees, and it gets opened, used, thrown. And that's a huge challenge for them. But if they are to replace that, they need 16,000 tons of material. So just for that one shampoo sachet. So it's a huge challenge for a company like that, to find replacements. So we as a company are working hard along with various others. We are working on building factories in Latin America region, trying to service that US market, because it's a challenge if you're going to even transport stuff from India to US, because it's a 2-month cycle and you're spending so much fuel in transportation. So we want to nearshore everything. So each market that we go for, we want to be very near that. So again, taking huge steps. We come from a very small region. I personally born and brought up in Ayodhya, which is well known now, wasn't when I was growing up. But the idea is that how do you build impact? And we feel that we can only do it through scale. And of course, it needs deep partnerships, alignment with customers. But fundamentally, everybody is looking for change.
What a wonderful story.
The other change, the other C of change is actually the cost, which is where all businesses and decision making will really come down to. So Ved, how are you working on that? Because a lot of green solutions, some really cool innovation, like I met somebody the other day who made plastic that could dissolve in water. But again, doesn't have, the scale to do it. Accessibility is an issue. Cost is an issue. So what are you doing at your end to actually make it reach every house?
No, absolutely. And it does boil down to that. Every discussion in the end across the table is, okay, what is the price? So we find that there is a sweet spot for customers, and that's 20%. So typically a packaging cost for any material is 5 to 6% of the total cost. And if you are able to bring it within 20%, they get enough brand value to be able to shift. And of course, the first dharma of packaging is to perform, right? It has to protect what is inside. If it doesn't do that job, no cost is, whether it's even cheaper, it doesn't help. So the first job for a packaging company is to follow its dharma, protect what is inside. And the next is, of course, make it as economic as possible. So for us, that has been the target, stay within 20%, so that the price discussion goes off the table. And it's only the performance discussion, because that's more joyous, right? How do you perform with a natural material to the extent of an inorganic material that doesn't breathe? So if you realize, all of us are very well packaged, our own skins, and then the bananas and the oranges and the coconuts and, everything you look around. And but what happens is that everything breathes. As soon as we die, our packaging dies too. And that's the fundamental challenge for us. So everything we do is nature inspired. We work on, and nature is very straightforward and simple. Everything is made out of 2 building blocks. It's either sugars or proteins, which is basically amino acids and carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And then how do you take that and build it into systems, things, collaborations to be able to enable that product to emerge, which will at least not breathe or not breathe too much for a long time so that it actually disintegrates.
It's called biomimicry, and I really wanted us to talk a little bit more about that because you touched on it. And it is such a cool concept when when companies and inventors try to look at the way nature grows, the way, as you said, a lemon peel covers a lemon, a banana peel protects a banana. It is really, really incredible. Ved, thank you for joining us, and thank you for just shining a light on
and
this.
great stuff, and gives us great pride to see how Indian companies are actually making this kind of impact and innovation and taking the product to the world as well. So really cool stuff. Very inspiring Earth Day morning, I must say. Yeah,
very much so. All right, we're going to move on though now to something very different. All right, next we bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's take a look first at an overview of the markets. GIFT Nifty suggests a positive opening for Indian equities today. Asian markets opened mixed in early morning trades as concerned on Trump's tariffs continue to rise. US markets saw sharp selling as Trump's criticism of the Fed took place. The Reserve Chair Powell triggered worries of instability. So all of that took place. There were worries of instability. Oil is inching up, while gold prices, as we've talked so much about today, hold at higher levels on account of mounting global uncertainty.
All right, let's look at the sector in focus this morning. GEM certification is a niche business. It is a high entry barrier business with fewer players. Now, along with natural diamonds, lab grown ones are also being certified now. And the slowdown is the key. Now, in the key US market could result in temporary setback as well for companies in this business. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about India's gem and jewelry sector and various other actionable insights on the markets. It's a premier destination for all the investing views and financial insights you will ever need, brought to you by Money Control.
Heading into a quick break, but on the other side, we're not done yet. Someone very important is on a visit in India right now. We're going to touch on that, the incredible visuals that are coming in just a few minutes.
नहीं सर, हम
Pope Francis made a surprise appearance for the Easter Sunday blessing at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican, which turned out to be his final public moment. The world was shocked by the news of his death the following day. At 88 years old, Pope Francis leaves behind a rich legacy, reaching out to the unheard and comforting those in need. His remarkable journey began with a humble request, not only for God's blessing, but also for the prayers of the people who believed in him. As he departs, he leaves behind footprints that will last a lifetime. On the 13th of March 2013, Jorge Mario Bergoglio was christened as Pope Francis. becoming the first Jesuit pope. As he assumed the highly revered role at the Vatican, his mission was simple. Pope Francis chose humility, simplicity, and compassion over fame and riches. He yearned to serve the people in every possible way. Pope Francis firmly believed that inequality should be banished from the face of the earth. He reminded the world that the poor matter just as much as those of high status. He walked with them, listened to their pleas, and stood firmly against what he called the economy of exclusion. On Holy Thursdays, he washed the feet of prisoners, refugees, and even Muslims, showing the world that dignity knows no boundaries. His papacy became a global call to mercy, a mission to place the forgotten at the center of the church. As Pope, Francis reached not only the poor, but also those shunned by society. The LGBTQ+ community, often marginalized by religion, was seen, acknowledged, and included in his pastoral vision. Under his leadership, the Vatican softened its guidelines on admitting gay men to train as priests. When questioned about the role of gay priests, the Pope replied, "If someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge?" These simple but profound words marked a dramatic shift in the tone for the Catholic Church. In another historic move in 2023, Pope Francis approved the blessing, though not of marriage, of same-sex couples under certain conditions, emphasizing compassion without compromising doctrine. Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis condemned the wars that erupted in Ukraine and Gaza. He prayed for a peaceful solution to the disastrous wars. He
All right, welcome back. We've come towards the end of the program, but we can't leave you without giving you the pictures that have been doing the rounds. This is US Vice President J.D. Vance, his very Indian wife, Indian origin wife, Usha, that comes in from here, and their 3 kids who came all dressed up in their Indian attires. Now, they met the Prime Minister, are on a tour, will be going to places here in Delhi and otherwise as well. Now, let's bring you the first set of pictures. This is when he was accompanied by his wife and their 3 kids. And this is, like we said, the Swaminathan Akshardham temple, the Swaminarayan Akshardham temple, beg your pardon, in the national capital. The Prime Minister, of course, hosted them at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg residence in Delhi. We'll just go to pictures over there as well. But how spectacular are these? Look at that. And I'm loving the kurta pajama and the kurta.
All in different colors.
All in different colors,
yeah.
and all Indian attires there. Of the kids of the Vice President and the lady there.
Second lady.
Second
yes,
lady,
yes.
yeah.
All right, those are visuals of them visiting 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, as you can see, meeting the Prime Minister. That is J.D. Vance, of course. Those are the 2 kids. Both leaders. We'll just stay on those visuals for a second. Usha Vance. Remember, there's always a big eye on the fashion of both the first and the second lady. That's a US tradition. There you can see her keeping it simple in a midi dress. But usually people look at even the designer behind the dress to understand, is the first lady or second lady paying homage to an Indian designer or, a global designer in this moment. What we're looking at right now is both leaders welcoming the progress in the bilateral deal. That's actually why they're here. They're discussing it, and it's being discussed in the shadow of, remember, US President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariff measures that are on pause right now till July. But just stay with those visuals. That's the Prime Minister meeting them. The kids, of course, adorable as ever in front of the Akshardham temple. And after this,
they're on to Jaipur today. You can't be in India and not go to Taj Mahal, right? So they are on to Jaipur today, and they will receive a formal welcome from the Rajasthan governor, the chief minister, and he and his family are expected to visit the Amer Fort, Jantar Mantar, City Palace, Hawa Mahal. All of that is happening over
Taj
there.
Mahal in Agra is a different.
Will he go there or not is the question. But we'll see if that happens on their way back. But like we said, not the last of the pictures we've seen just yet.
All right, and with that, we're drawing our show to a close. We hope you enjoyed it. We've covered so many things today, a lot of very sound advice for you right at the start in terms of the investments you can make, the advice that we're getting from experts, and then Earth Day and two people who are changing the world right from here in India.
We hope they have left you inspired to do your bit for the environment. Here's wishing everybody a very happy Earth Day. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Mahi sir.